Yeah, thanks. Okay, so we're gonna get started. And we are learning today for the refuah shlema of Yechezkel Baruch ben Leah, Batya bat Avraham, and for continued strength and a speedy recovery also for Sarah Orenstein, who Baruch Hashem had a baby girl and who was named, baby girl was named today, and her name is Gila Chaim? Gila Sophia Bas Sarah. I don't know if Sarah has a...
Is she doing okay? The normal recovery, or is it a lot harder?
Be'ezrat Hashem, everybody should be healthy. Okay, so yeah, no, I can. Is it okay? Okay, because it's on. That was our technical difficulties, as always. Welcome to Shoshana Shir. Okay. Oh, and Chana, I didn't send one out. I'm sorry. I'll send it out afterwards. Okay. You'll have to listen well. Okay. Okay. So VaYakhel. Okay, VaYakhel is VaYakhel Pekude are very, very interesting parshiot because they basically are like a repeat. You know, there's a lot of there's so many. I think 400 or something like that. Psukim devoted to the building of the Mishkan, and we have like a very like there's like no Rashi. You know, it's just like mamish a repetition. But there are, you know, there's always what to talk about, and there's always like this interesting dynamic that happens when the wording is slightly different, right? So we have a very, very important mitzvah that we are given, not for the first time, but in the first time in this manner, and that is Shabbos. So that's what we're going to focus on today, okay? So I have the pasuk for you at the top of. We're going to make an executive decision. Okay, so I have the pasuk for you on the top of your sheets, okay? It's the very beginning of VaYakhel. It says, VaYakhel Moshe et kol adat bnei Yisrael, vayomer aleihem, right? Moshe gathered. VaYakhel is like always such an interesting, he assembled, he gathered, on the Sfaria translation, it says convoked, whatever that, you know, it's like a gathering for a purpose, okay? Love that, right? And he said to them, Eila hadvarim asher tziva Hashem la'asot otam. These are the things that Hashem has commanded you to do. Sheishes yamim te'aseh melacha. For a period of 6 days, work should be done. Ubayom hashvi'i yeh lachem kodesh Shabbos Shabbaton. And on the seventh day will be holy for you. It will be a Shabbos of Shabboses, la Hashem, for Hashem. Kol ha'oseh bo malacha yumat. And everyone who does this kind of work, malacha, will be put to death, okay? Or will die. There's a little bit of a, right? Either way, you could translate that kind of either way. And there's a question that many of the Mefarshim ask, okay? And the question is, when we're told about Shabbos, right? So the very first thing that we, you know, as little kids, right? What's the first thing that you learn on Shabbos? Exactly what it says here. You should not do any work, right? That whoever does work on it will be, you know, like that's a big sin. That's a big no-no, right? How many categories of work do we have? 39, right? Okay. Yeah, we're all rusty here. No worries. Okay, so there's a really interesting Gemara that where do the malachas come from? Where do we understand the malachas? What's it from? From the building of the Mishkan, right? Okay, so any category of work that was done in the building of the Mishkan, so those are the categories of things that we're not allowed to do on Shabbos, okay? And there were 39 of them. Now, it's very interesting, right? There are a lot of things to do that were done in the Mishkan, and the way that they sort of the way that the categories kind of fell out is 39. Although
You need the kids
really
book.
it could be,
You need the kids book.
right, we have the
It's the
kids book,
only way
exactly.
The only way.
It's the only way.
Right.
Right. So for us, like obviously living in 2021 is also like, it's very confusing. Like what's an Av Malacha, what's a Tolada, what's a, like obviously there was no, there were no electric lights in the time, that's always the thing. There were no cars. How does Hashem know, like not how does Hashem, but how did the rabbis
We know
do
what
it?
advice, food,
Right?
or everything we're coming from.
Right.
gathering. It's
Okay.
very good.
So we know that there's 39 categories, but there's a really interesting idea here. Okay. So go right into the Gemara that's in the next source on your sheets. In the Gemara, it says, Shinamar, okay, it's explaining, it's like a whole, whatever, this is it's in Shabbos, and it's explaining a whole idea about where do these laws come from, right? Where do you find this and where do you find that, okay? And at one point, it basically says, VaYakhel Moshe brings our pasuk, okay? So I'm not going to read the whole pasuk, right? Go straight to like where the pasuk ends and then go to Devarim. It says Devarim, and then it says Ha Devarim, and then it says Eila Ha Devarim, okay? These are the way that right? If you look at the pasuk, that's how it lays out, right? Right? We say these are these things, or these are the things. And then the Gemara says, Elu shloshim b'teisha malachot shene'emru l'Moshe b'Sinai, okay? These Eila HaDevarim are the 39 things, let's say, the 39 categories of work that were said to Moshe and Sinai. Now, the cool part about this is in the Rashi, okay? Look at the Rashi right underneath it. It says Devarim. Now, when you say, it's so funny, I was just having this discussion with Libby the other day. When you say Devarim, when you say in English, let's say, right? Give me a couple of those. What does that mean? A couple, how many? Two, okay? And when you say a few, what does that mean? Three or more, right? Okay, so that's actually the type of the word Devarim also. That Devarim, Rashi says, mashma trey, right? Trey is Aramaic for two, okay? Devarim means a couple, okay? The same way that we say, give me a couple of those means two. Hey, lirabot chad, harei shlosha. When you put the hey in front of the word Devarim, it becomes not give me a couple, it becomes give me a few, okay? So instead of being two things, it becomes three things. And then, Eile, the gematria is Lamed Vav, right? Aleph plus Lamed plus Hey, yes,
really cool.
is 36. So 36 plus the 3 of Ha Devarim equals 39, right? It's kind of cool. Okay, so actually we're going to learn a piece of the Eish Kodesh today. The Eish Kodesh goes into a whole gematria thing that actually we're not going to focus on. So I actually retyped the Eish Kodesh instead of taking a photograph of it, which I usually do, in order to sort of cut out that whole gematria thing, because it's interesting, but it's and it's awesome, and maybe someday I'll be whole enough to totally understand it and explain it to you. But the part that I really want to, the lesson that I really want to take out from him was not from that gematria part, but it is a good thing to know. It is an important thing to know. Now, and this is not where the 39 categories come from, but it's always nice when, right? It's always nice when there's like when it's hidden in there, exactly. When there's like a remez to it, okay? Because it's like there's depth. Gematria gives so much depth to Torah, and it's nice. It helps us understand that it's not stam a list of things. There's like some underlying energy that's going on that is all a part of this whole project that is called life and that is called Shabbos. Okay, so let's learn the Kedushas Levi, because it's quite beautiful. Okay, so again, he starts off with the pasuk Eila HaDevarim Asher Tziva Hashem La'asot Otam Sheshet Yamim Te'aseh V'chulei. Okay, same pasuk the whole time. We're talking only about this one pasuk. V'darshu Chachmeinu Zichronam Livracha in Shabbos, okay, which is exactly what we just read. So the Kedushas Levi is just going to basically restate this for us. Eila HaDevarim Alam Tes Malachos, right? Eila HaDevarim is about the 39 malachot. Klomar Eile Shehu Merumaz Al HaChitzonim. That Eile is a hint to the Chitzonim. Chitzonim means like the superficial, right? Or the outer aspect, okay? Kmo shekatav ha'arizal, okay? And the Arizal writes, and I looked at the Arizal and I thought about bringing it, but it just like made everything too Oh my gosh, your babies are so cute. Can I know her? Sorry, I'm looking at Hannah Ralphberg's babies on screen. They're really, really cute and yummy. So they're included in our Torah here. So I thought about bringing that result, but I thought it was like unnecessarily complicated for us. Okay, we're going to take just the chitzoni of his words. Okay, so the Kedushas Levi brings down. He says the Arizal says on the pasuk from Eicha, Ani bocheha. The Arizal talks about what does it mean that I'm crying, and it's really a reference to Hashem crying. You know, the book of Eicha is very, very, very deep, but basically Hashem says on Eile ani bocheha. Okay, and that we know that we always take when a word appears in one place and it appears in another place, so you can always make a correlation between them. Okay, so the Arizal is basically saying on this Eile, on Eile Hadvarim, that's what I'm crying about, meaning that Hashem is crying that we're maybe not keeping Shabbos properly. Okay, now that's a kind of a negative thing. So let's keep on going because we know Kedushas Levi will not. That's not the end of it. Okay, and he says, "Anachnu tzrichim letaken otam al yedei malacha." We have to fix this. Okay, how do we fix this? We fix it through the malacha. So it's interesting what he's saying, right? Because on Shabbos we're not allowed to do malacha, and yet here the Kedushas Levi, based on the Arizal, is saying no. Actually, malacha is the way for a tikkun, is a way to fix what Hashem is crying about on Shabbos. How does that work? V'zehu la'asot. Lashon tikkun. He uses the term, right? In our pasuk above, okay? Look back at the pasuk. It says, VaYakhel Moshe et kol adat b'nei Yisrael, v'yomar aleihem, right? Eila hadavarim asher tziva Hashem la'asot otam. These are the things that Hashem commanded us to do them. And then the very next pasuk is Sheshet Yamim te'aseh malacha. 6 days you shall work, right? Or work shall be done. It's funny, I'm going to say it two different ways, right? It doesn't say, like, the pasuk doesn't start out, this is what shouldn't be done. It actually starts out with, this is what should be done.
Do the malacha.
Do the malacha on the 6 days, but not on the 7th day. Okay, and that was our original question, right?
I read that you write about the holiest in productivity. How, like,
Right.
Stage
That's exactly
beautiful.
That's exactly where we're going to go. So I want to hear more about that. I just want to like get there, which is exactly where we're going, which is that, on one hand, we had a share about this last year, whatever, about this idea of Zachor v'Shamor, and how sometimes when somebody is becoming frum, or when somebody is, I don't know, like or they're just interested, maybe they're not even, right? Like, and they say like, well, what's Shabbos about? What's the first thing out of our in the world? That's maybe not in our chevra, right? Hopefully, but what's the first thing out of everybody's mouth in the world? Well, you can't do this and that and the other thing, right? And then people are like, what? You can't be on your phone? You can't drive anywhere? You can't watch TV? And there's like a focus on what you can't do, right? And really, it's so much lahefech, right? People who keep Shabbos, Bezrat Hashem, in a way that they like are connected to the Shabbos, feel so much more like what you do on Shabbos is what you can't do the rest of the week, right? And it's like it flips the whole thing on its head. So the restrictions that are in place for us on Shabbos actually enable us to do what we can't do when those restrictions are not in place. I actually had a little brief discussion with David Ornstein this morning because he asked me to, because we were talking about the shir, and we were talking about this little book that I have. If anybody also wants a copy of it, I have a couple left. That he said, they have Baruch Hashem, they had 3 boys, and now they have a little girl. So always that's like an interesting, thing to like, you know, right? Like when you have 3 boys or you have 4 girls or right? Like those, I was, you know, like I had a very different perspective because I had a boy and then I had a girl right away. And it was different, like with the girl, but there was also this, like, I don't know, there's like a sense of like, oh, this is something different, right? So you, not only that, just like the flavor, right? So he actually said to me something so beautiful. He said, like, it was, you know, I don't want to like, you know, like sneeze and privacy and all of that, but I asked him if I could say this. So he said it was okay. That he had a new realization that, you know, like his wife, Baruch Hashem, Kanan Har, she should, you know, be healthy, is like a warrior through like all women are warriors when they, you know, in giving birth, like it's very, very, you know, full on, right? Okay. I was like, yeah. and we're all warriors that, you know, in having done that. And he said, and he wrote, I have a new perspective on Shelo Asani Isha, that, wait, I actually want to like take his words and not my words, because I was like, whoa, oh my gosh. He said, Shelo Asani Isha isn't a negative, it's an acknowledgement of my limitations. And I just actually thought that was so beautiful because, right, that's actually what we're doing on Shabbos. Shelo asa malacha is acknowledging our own limitations, and who are we, you know, acknowledging has no limitations? Hashem, right? So on the day of Shabbos, by acknowledging or by acting in a way within certain restrictions, we are basically saying, I am not the be all and end all of everything, right? It's not about what I can do with my hands. It's not about my creative work. It's about Hashem's creative work. Hashem created the world, right? Yeah. No. I'm sorry. Right. Right. Right.
And it's like, and I feel like that could be really.
Right. We feel so, right. If it's learned from the wrong angle, it feels very cutting off. Yeah, exactly.
But then Chassidus explains that the whole reason why they're not allowed into this mikdash is because, like you said, women have seen and experienced something so beyond, something so godly,
Right.
almost like
creation.
Right?
Yeah.
They've created life. And I feel like going to the Beit HaMikdash could also make it feel like this
doesn't really
this is as good as it gets.
Right. Like this doesn't really compare to what we just experienced.
Yes,
exactly.
I feel like it really does fit in because
Right.
it's a feeling of there are limitations and we should be aware of them also.
Right. Right. And the limitations enable. The limitations are there to help us to see beyond, you know, what is beyond and it's Gevura. Right. Exactly. I always use this example because it just sat in my heart and it moved me forever. You know, like when sometimes you see something and it just helps you always see that aspect through that perspective of the roof of the boys' school of Arod Etzion. I've said this so many times, right? That the roof of the new gym or the matnas, whatever, next to Arod Etzion Banim, was built as like the matnas was built, and then the roof was intended to be like a basketball court or like a migrash for the boys to play on. But of course, like, you know, they can't play on a roof with no fences, right? With no walls. So the walls had to go up in order to enable them to play on the roof. So we need walls in our lives. We need borders. We need boundaries in order to enable us to truly excel, to truly, like, the limitations enable, they don't disable, right? Like a river, right? Like that's exactly like you said, Adina. It's Gevura versus Chesed, right? Chesed, you think, is like abundance and giving and wonderful, right? Okay, but a flood is like Chesed with no Gevura. And so if there was, you know, either way, right? If there was Shabbos every day, then there would be no Shabbos. And if there was work every day, then we would all, you know, go crazy. But like either way, it doesn't work. You need the boundaries. You need the differentiation. You need the gevura. You need the I think I've used all the words that I want to say. Yeah.
The limitations kind of keep us focused.
Yes, for sure.
And the feeling of like, if you had Shabbos every day, it's like when you go into like that Shabbos Yom Tov
Yes.
moments,
Yeah.
and it
Yes.
starts to lose,
Right. It
and you
loses
burn
its
out from it.
specialness.
Right. It's like,
Right. Exactly.
the proportion of 6 to 1 is good.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So the Kedushas Levi is basically
That's why it's to be
saying,
here, right? There's much.
right. There's
limited,
there's many
That's
fewer
overkill.
3-day
It's
Yom
not
Tovs.
supposed to be that
Exactly.
way.
Yeah. Totally. But it's interesting, right? Because like Tishrei is like sort of like boom, 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 boom. So there is also this aspect of like every now and then we need an infusion, like of like intense and then nothing for a while, right? Like there's
Right. And if we are truly true to ourselves and to the Chag, each one has its own personal thing that it brings.
for sure.
I mean, Rosh Hashanah is very different than Yom
For
Kippur.
sure.
It's very different than Sukkot.
So we're
that's
gonna
very different than
actually-
Simchat Torah, but
right.
you have to constantly refocus it to see
Exactly,
it and not just go through
exactly,
the motions.
Exactly. Okay, so the Kedushas Levi, the end of that Kedushas Levi is basically that he's saying the lashon of la'asot is a lashon of tikkun, because when we do what we need to do for the 6 days, it actually is like a correction and enables us to keep Shabbos in the I don't want to use the word correct, but like in the better way, okay, in the best way, let's say. V'zehu b'chol. Okay, lashon tikkun. Oh, v'zehu b'chol, because the tikkun for Shabbos actually is done during chol. And this is what you were saying before, Neely, that this idea, and the Eish Kodesh is going to bring it out also, that the 6 days of work actually enable the like if you didn't have the 6 days of work, you wouldn't recognize the Kedusha of Shabbos. Okay, I know you were saying something else also, but we're going to get into that angle in a second. Aval b'Shabbat ein mavrin hachitzonim, but on Shabbos you can't clarify, you can't do that sort of birur, like that differentiation that you can do during chol. Okay, you're not work. That's not the work That's not our service on Shabbos. Our service on Shabbos is about recognizing Hashem and about doing all kinds of other things. But like the other side of that coin is that our service during the week is being weekly, is being chol, is doing that work. V'lachen asur be'asiyat hamalacha. And therefore, that's why we can't do malacha on Shabbos, but we have to do malacha during the week, because it's through the doing of this malacha. That's what the Arizal was saying, that through the doing of the malacha, that's how we will actually enable ourselves to keep Shabbos in a way that will cause Hashem to be happy and not be crying. Okay. Now the Rebbe actually adds I brought the Rebbe's words here because there's also it's important to keep this in mind, right? I just brought it in English. The Torah describes the Jews' work in the course of the week as a passive endeavor. 6 days a week shall be done, right? The wording in the pasuk is te'aseh, right? Which is like he feel, yeah, that the work is being done, okay? Rather than you should work. It's not an active form of work; it's a passive tense in Hebrew, right? Which connotes a certain dimension, a certain facet, which is like that, what the Rebbe's going to say. For the Jew regards his workday endeavors not as the source of his sustenance, but merely as a vessel in which to receive Hashem's blessing, right? Because we, obviously it's all about balance always. So there's always that tricky aspect of I'm doing my, I have to do my hishtadlus, right? I have to work, but I have to make sure that I know that the work is not the main focus of my life. Unless I'm doing it through this angle. Kilu, it's not the main focus of my life, right? But if I have in the back of my mind that, okay, on this level, the reason I'm doing this work is to be able to come closer to Hashem through this differentiation between the 6 days and Shabbos, right? So I'm doing the work because that's what you do during the 6 days, but I'm not gonna be that's not the ikar. The ikar is always the connection to Hashem. So I have to be careful that I'm doing the work as a vehicle to connect to Hashem, or to
live to work or work to live.
Exactly. Or there's a famous story with the, I think it's with the Rebbe Rashab, but I always, right? The head in galoshes, right? Okay, yeah. So I think it's the Rebbe Rashab, but it might be the Rebbe Marash. That you're all like, Adina's like, I know, I'm trying to figure it right. Okay, so either the father or the son, let's say, okay? Either the fourth or the fifth, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's. A businessman once came to him and he said, he was like talking about his factory where they make galoshes, right? Which nobody even makes anymore, like those rubber things that would go over like men's shoes in the rain. And he just like kept on going on and on and on and on about it. And he was like asking for brachas that it should be successful and like just like overly much, right? And the Rebbe said to him, feet in galoshes I've seen, but a head in galoshes I've never seen. And he was basically saying like, where's your head? Is your head in the business, or is your head in the fact that you are doing the business in order to, give tzedakah and keep Shabbos and put food on your table and, because Sheshet Yamim Te'aseh Melacha, right? But the other half of that sentence is Uba Yom Hashvi'i Yelachem Kodesh Shabbat. So, right, that's like the angle from which we have to come at all of our work, no matter what it is, right? That it's always, always, always about, yes, I have to do my work. Yes, I have to make money. Yes, and obviously certain jobs lend themselves more to this than others, right? But at the same time, a person can, we always talk about like, the shoemaker who's saying Tehillim on the side, or the computer programmer who in the hour of lunch does Daf Yomi, or and it's not about the amount of Torah that you learn. It's just about your perspective. It's about your energy that you bring into it. I feel like you have something to say.
I had this wonderful experience where we had this dog groomer come outside our house. He had like a mobile thing, and we went out. The dog went out, and he had his shear on. He was like listening to his shear while like cleaning my dog. Like,
Isn't that amazing?
It was amazing.
I don't know about like there's certain images that I don't know, just bring me to tears no matter like how often I see them. And it's like a chayal in tefillin. Oh, I'm like just thinking about it, I'm like tearing up. But like I find that so much the essence of what our life is meant to look like, Like, yes, I'm doing my job. I'm here for, to serve Am Yisrael, but I'm serving Hashem. Like it's really all about serving Hashem, and it all like I give us all a bracha that it should all come together like on a daily basis when we, like remind ourselves constantly of this aspect that it helps us to, that helps us live life this way when we have this in the back of our minds.
So I used to work with rabbis for a living, and I would find books that I thought rabbis should have, and I sent it to them. I found this book that was about pastors, nothing to do with it, but it was about finding the holiness in sweeping your floors.
In sweeping your floors.
Meaning like,
Yeah.
you're the rub, and some people have a
Right.
custodian in a factory,
Right.
but like it's a small thing, but sweeping your floors, like even if you're not trying, like it's little things that you're sort of bringing,
For
like
sure.
elevating
For
to
sure.
godliness. And, like,
There's a famous story. You'll forgive me because it just fell into my head, but I don't remember who it is. But a tzaddik who I remember he was from Vienna, I believe, or he was living in Vienna. I think it was one of the Ruzhiner grandchildren, and he was ordered by the Nazis to like sweep. That was one of the things that Yimach Shmam, right? That they when they came into Austria in 1938. They abused and humiliated the Jewish residents of Vienna by making them do all kinds of not necessarily difficult labor, but like in a humiliating way, right?
Demeaning.
Degrading, yeah, demeaning, both. And anyway, he like swept and no problem, whatever. And then later on in life, he lived in Tel Aviv.
Oh.
You know the story, right? And he was like a tzaddik, it was like a rebbe, and he used to sweep the street in front of his house like every morning. And people always wondered like, why are you doing that? And his answer was that he promised himself that like, it's really all service of Hashem. And whether he's sweeping Hashem's streets at the order of, an animal in a Nazi uniform, or he's going to sweep, Bezrat Hashem, Hashem's streets in the holy, in Eretz HaKodesh. So it's really all about serving Hashem. And so there was like this promise, Kilu, that he made that if he survives, then he'll sweep Hashem's streets in Eretz HaKodesh. But really, what's like for him, I mean, it's such a holy level, right? But like, what's the difference? That I'm sweeping your world, Hashem. I'm changing the diaper of your dirty tushy, Hashem. Like, you know, like, not to be like sorry if I sound like but like, Hashem, you created these children, right? They're your babies too, and I'm changing their diaper for you, or Hannah's changing their diaper for you.
Also, I think if we think about what the malachot are, they're not glamorous activities. Like
Right.
It's not holiness.
Right.
I mean, but it is.
Right.
And that's
Right. And that's always, there's another piece by the Eish Kodesh. We'll do it another year. That was like much longer, and I have to figure out how to do it. But very much focusing on this idea of, that we can only serve Hashem in a physical way. Like Hashem makes it in this world that the physical world becomes a way of serving him. But obviously we have to have that mindset, because we can't see, when I'm sweeping my floor, it's not like angels are singing, it's not like there's like magical, sparkles coming off of the, so I have to have it in my eyes, and then I'll see it, if it's in my heart. Right, exactly. But if I have it in the back of my mind, then I can see it, right? Because it is physical, it's not spiritual.
What the Torah is both philosophical and theoretical, but also like take the people with ADHD, like you have plenty to work with here.
Right.
So much of what we do is what we do.
Right. We live in a physical world. We are physical beings, and so we have to use this word. This is what we can do. This is what none of us are going up and living on a mountaintop, Baruch Hashem, right? That's not what Judaism is supposed to be. Like it's sad, if we learn it from the, obviously, look, different parts of our life, different times of our lives, a person who's immersed in yeshiva, who's not married, then that is go be on the mountaintop, that's Tishrei, suck it up, be immersed in it, suck it up in a good way, sponge it up, soak it up. That's not suck it up, soak it up, right? Be immersed in it, so that when you are changing the diapers, and when you are doing the dirty laundry, and when you are doing the dishes again for the 15th time because your kids are home all day long, not anymore, thank God, but thank God they're in school, whatever, I love them. Okay. But like when you're doing that, you can look at it from this angle that this is also holy work, right? I have enough connecting me to know that this is actually also, this is the way that I can serve Hashem at this time of my life during the week, right? And on Shabbos, because there's also tradition on Shabbos, but right. You want to say something? Okay. Another Kedushas Levi. We're going to do another angle, and then we're going to go into the Eish Kodesh, and it's short. It's all short today. Okay. So the Kedushas Levi brings out another dimension of this, okay? Because this is, it's never ending. It's so beautiful. So he says, "Ubayom hashvi'i yeh lachem kodesh," right? The end of the sent, or the end of that phrase in the pasuk is not just 6 days you shall work, but also that the seventh day you should make holy. And the only reason I brought it was because it actually is exactly what we were talking about 2 weeks ago on the pre-Purim, like the Purim Yom Kippur shir. Al derech chatzio laHashem v'chatzio lachem, right? That was the pasuk that was the piece of the Gemara that we brought out, that every Chag has half for us and half for Hashem, right? Except Yom Kippur and Purim are like the two halves of the whole, right? But every Chag has the spiritual aspect, the aspect of going to shul, the mitzvah aspect, which is really the half that's like for, that's Hashem's part. And then the meal, I don't know, whatever, the enjoyment, the spending time with friends, the aspect of the davening or of the mitzvah that we connect to on our level. And that's the half for us, okay? But then he says, Ubeshabbat halachem hu gam ken la Hashem. That's a very important aspect, okay? On Shabbos, what's for you is also for Hashem. We talked about this a lot when we were learning Tanya, that, right, there's always the aspect of, there's always in life, there's the mitzvah, and then there's what's asur, lanu, right, what's not allowed, okay, and aveira, and then there's this massive, massive gray area in between. And so a mitzvah is always holy, and the aveira is always not holy. But what's in between depends on us and our intention. So like again, and this is, it's a little bit of a slippery slope, and we always have to like know ourselves, but like if I need a new dress, let's say, okay, and here's like a holy intention. I'm buying this dress because I'm going to wear it at the Seder, and it's going to make my Simchas Yom Tov that much higher, which is completely kosher, let's say, right? Like we were just saying, Hashem created us as physical beings. So he created a world for us to enjoy, right? In the right way, of course, but for us to enjoy. So the idea of a new dress can be a very holy thing, right? A wedding dress, a dress that, that we wear, I don't know, whatever, like a certain kind of lotion that you put on after you go to the mikvah, like whatever. Like it could be, there are certain physical things in the world that can be used in a everything in the world can be used in a holy, everything that's not asur, right? Can be used in a very holy way. So a dress, let's just use that nice example, okay? I can buy a dress and it can be, excuse me, it can be for the purpose of elevating my chag. Or, a person can buy a dress because there's just never enough, I never have enough dresses. Like there's always room for more dresses, right? Or I can buy a dress because I want to make someone else jealous. I can buy a dress because, I have some kind of, I don't know, whatever, like a weird, like a less holy reason. Okay. So there's this range, and it becomes about, is my head in the dress, right? Is it about the dress, or is it about what I'm using the dress for? Okay. And that's really the idea of that story, right? What are you using excuse me. What are you using the factory of? What are you using your business for? What are you using your physical purchases for? So that's that gray area. That's up to us and our intention when we do that physical act, but not on Shabbos. Meaning on Shabbos, all of our physical desires, like we don't even have, for the most part, there has to be our own intention, right? Like it can come afterwards even, like it's a lot of flexibility there, right? But there has to be some kind of aspect of like, I'm buying this in some way to serve Hashem, right? Or I'm eating this in some way to serve Hashem. Eating is the best example on Shabbos because it's like, eating is not necessarily a holy act. It can be made holy by making a bracha over it and by doing things with the energy from the food. But eating itself is not necessarily holy, but on Shabbos it is. On Shabbos it is. Oh my gosh, is that for me? Thank you so much. Okay. I always feel like you all know I have asthma, right? So I take my asthma spray in the morning and it makes whatever. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So the whole idea is that on Shabbos, that's why we make dessert on Shabbos, my friends. That's why our kids get Shabbos candy. That's why, that's why we have Adi's cookies that are so delicious, Baruch Hashem, on, Shabbos morning for breakfast. Like it's all about the idea that on Shabbos it comes together. On Shabbos, our physical desires are elevated to a totally different level just because it's Shabbos. Because Shabbos enables that. There's a kedusha of Shabbos that enables even something that's not actually holy in and of itself to be infused with holiness. And actually, we're going to go right into the Eish Kodesh because he really brings out this point. And then we'll understand. We'll like maybe understand the Kedushas Levi. Oh, I didn't finish. Sorry. Hu gam ken laHashem, v'zeh yeh lachem kodesh, and that's why the phrasing in the Torah is that it should be lachem kodesh, that it should be holy for you. Ha lachem, right? The to you, the for you, yeh gam ken kodesh, and he says v'kal lahavim, right? And this is an easy concept to understand, right? Because the what's for you on Shabbos is also made holy through the holiness of Shabbos. Right? So, let's say I only wave the lulav because Hashem tells me to, and let's say I don't enjoy it at all. I don't know. I think it's quite beautiful, and there is some level of enjoyment left, but let's just say that there's a person who has terrible allergies, and every time they shake the lulav, they start sneezing their head off. I don't know, whatever, okay? So they're only doing it for Hashem, right? So that's the part that's only for Hashem. And then, they're like gorging themselves on meatballs in the sukkah, because that's what you eat in the sukkah, right? Everybody does it. So and that's ki'ilu only for lachem, right? Only for him. But on Shabbos, somehow the gorging on the food, like obviously we have to have this mindset and we have to know, and there's always the element of like what we bring to it, right? But there's a holiness that is higher to the physical acts on Shabbos than even the physical acts on Yom Tov.
Maybe it's like what you said about Purim in Yom Kippur, that the day in and of itself is going to be infused with what you're doing.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. Okay, so we're gonna read. Now remember, this is just a piece of the Eish Kodesh, okay? But it's from March 2nd, 1940, and he says, "Vehine noda mizohar Kodesh." It says in the Zohar, "Hachiluk ben Shabbos liyom tov." The difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. And we've talked about this before. We'll go through it again. She Yom Tov hu mikra Kodesh shekorim et hakodesh umazminim oto. Why is Yom Tov holy? Because we call down the holiness. We invite the holiness into Yom Tov. What does he mean by that? Right? We've talked about this idea before. That what day?
It's based on when we decide when the new moon is.
Exactly.
We count from there.
So of course the concept of each chag, is holy, but the day being infused with that holiness is really up to us, because as VaYakhel said, it's all about what day we see the new moon, what day we declare Rosh Chodesh. So it's not like, okay, it could be on Tuesday or on Wednesday and they can both be holy. No, whichever one we decide is the 10th of the month or the 15th of the month. Like those are, the chagim have dates, right? When is the 1st of Tishrei? When is the 10th of Tishrei? When is Yud? Like that's up to us based on when we declare Rosh Chodesh. Not which date is the holy one, but which day that date falls out on. So therefore, there's an aspect of every chag that has like the holiness is dependent on us. Right, for sure. That's a perfect way of explaining it. From Milamata is Yom Tov, because we are drawing down the holiness into the day by declaring that day the Yom Tov. And Shabbos is Milamayla, because every seventh day since the beginning of creation is Shabbos. And it has nothing to do with me or you or, the calendar. It doesn't matter what, that's every seventh day. And it's very interesting. Like for me personally, the stories of like people keep trying to keep calendars in, not just in the Holocaust, but like in Siberia, in jail, like that someone needs to know when it's Shabbos, because that way they can tap into that holiness that exists in the world, right? I can't draw down Shabbos upon myself. I mean, there is an aspect of like bringing in Shabbos early or, saying, we're going to talk about that aspect of like saying Havdalah until a certain day. So there is this idea of like, we can expand it, but we can't decide. I can't just say like, you know what? I actually really need Shabbos today. Yalla, like it doesn't work like that. I mean, I can't do that with Chag really either, but there's an aspect of my it's dependent on Am Yisrael, and Shabbos is not dependent on Am Yisrael. Shabbos is something from above to below. Okay, so let's read the Eish Kodesh. Okay, so he says, V'Shabbat hu be'atzmo kodesh, right? And Shabbos is in and of itself holy. K'mo shekasuv ki kodesh hu lachem, right? That's what it says, right? In our pasuk. Ubayom hashvi'i yeh lachem kodesh, Shabbat Shabbaton. Okay, so he changed the wording around a little bit, but same idea, right? It is holy for you. V'gam zot, ro'in sheb'Shabbat en mitzvah la'atzma. And we can see that there's no mitzvah that is the mitzvah that you have to do to make it, like that's Shabbos. Okay, we do make Kiddush, but Kiddush is like in honor of the day. It's not like the mitzvah that we have to do to have Shabbos. Kamo b'Rosh Hashanah hashofar, right? Like we blow the shofar. The shofar is the main mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah. B'Yom Kippurim hahei inuyim, right? The 5 things that we refrain from doing, or the sufferings that we take upon ourselves on Yom Kippur. B'Sukkot hasukah v'daled minim, right? On Sukkot we have to have a sukkah. We have to have the arba minim. There is, less of an aspect of Sukkot if you don't have a sukkah, or if you don't have. Hello, my son. We're in the middle of a shiur, so just want to not scare you. Besukot hasukah. Okay, so like on all the chagim, we have a specific mitzvah that we really have to do. Rak bazeh she'en osin malacha she'osin b'sheshet yimei ha'maseh. The only thing that we don't have, that we have for Shabbos, so like sort of that is up to us, that we're responsible for, is not to do malacha. Right? It's like a funny thing. You just have to not do something. Right? It's like passive, okay? Because we're not the ones bringing down the kedusha. The kedusha is being, thrown down onto us. Obviously, we have to make ourselves a vessel to receive it, but the kedusha is in the world from milamala lamata.
It's just funny because you started the share saying, how do we teach like Shabbos? I think it was in regards to kids, and they see from like a young age, you light the candles, we make hamotzi and all that. But when they start playing, you say, no, that's muksa.
Right.
Like, it's the first time you're giving instruction.
Right.
Because you're not telling them to prepare the food, not telling them to light the candles. But like, that you can't do.
Right. It's interesting. It's always this very fine balance between Shamor and Zachor, right? Like the shiur that we did a couple of years ago about Ephraim and Menashe was this whole idea of like that we're really good on the Shamor, but not so good on the, we're really good on the, we're really good on the Shamor and not so good on the Zachor, which is like, right? But he's saying here that it's so much easier for us to, like you said, it's more sort of obvious in a way, right? Like it's easier. The Shamor is easier for us because that's what we're told in the Torah, right? Meaning like everybody, this may be a good way of thinking of it. Of course, the candles and the kiddush, right? Of course. But like there's 25 hours, okay? So candles are the first, 30 seconds, right? And kiddush is also like 1 minute, but.
And have to also last 30 seconds.
Right. But Shamor is all 25 hours, right? So, so it's, sorry. So it's everybody's Shamors the same way and everybody's Zachors different ways. Right? Like we have much more individuality when it comes to Zachor, right? Like a family could say like, oh, we have a tradition of, I don't know, we have this little box. I've told you guys about this before. We have this little box. We haven't done it for a while. We do it now much more sporadically, but we used to do it every Shabbos that it's like questions, like, and we go around the table and everybody has to make a question and, an answer. And it's just a way of, promoting conversation and not the same conversations over and over and over again. Right. But every family has different traditions that they do. And yet no family, keeps Shabbos by switching on and off the dining room light, like we all have the same laws when it comes to Shamor, but we all have our own traditions when it comes to Zachor, right? Okay, so the only thing that we have is lo ta'aseh melacha. Okay, ki ha-Shabbat gam min yimei hachol oseh kedusha. But here's the thing, Shabbat can also make kedusha out of the yimei hachol. And this is really the ikar of what I wanted to, of what he's saying here. Ve'od zot shegam el sheshet yimei ha'ma'aseh kedushas haShabbos nimsheches kenoda ad yom dalid mekablim mishabbat ha'avar umin yom dalid ve'elech min haShabbat haba. So what does he say here? He says, how do we see this, that Shabbos can like sort of expand into the weekday? Because there's a Gemara that says it's a whole discussion of, it's actually a discussion of writing a get. And there's 2 parts, okay? The first part is how do you extend Shabbos into the week? Because this part doesn't have anything to do with the get. Erase that for a second from your mind. How does Shabbos extend into the week? Because you can make Havdalah until the 4th day. right? We know that you can make Havdalah until, we say Tuesday night, right? Okay, so until Yom Revi'i, we really can make Havdalah. And so the Shabbos before extends until Yom Revi'i of the following week. And then in writing a get, if you're right, if a person, I mean, right, lo aleinu, but like just this is a very good point to bring out, that in writing a get, a Rav has to write whether, like the way that it's dated, the way that the date is written on the get is based on the Shabbos before or the Shabbos after. So if it's up to Yom Revi'i, they say Yom Sheni May Shabbos Kitisa, okay? And if it's from Wednesday, from Yom Chamishi, let's say from Wednesday night, right? Or from Yom Chamishi, they say Yom Chamishi le'or or le'erev VaYakhel Pekudei, right? So that's the dividing line between the week. Okay, so what's he gonna say? He's saying you get, right, until Wednesday, you get Kedusha, you get energy from the Shabbos before, and from Wednesday night, you get Shabbos, you're like sort of drawing it, like an early payment, right? A payment in advance, that's what it's called, right? In advance, you get an advance on the Kedusha that's coming in the Shabbos, to be. There's a famous story, right? You guys know Yosef Makar Shabbos, yeah? Where he used to buy, right, the best things for Shabbos, and like all week long he was preparing for Shabbos, that they would go through the marketplace and, find like, oh, this would be, on Sunday he would see like a beautiful thing and he would buy it and he'd be like, I'm going to save it for Shabbos. And then the next day he would go to the market and he would see something even better. And he'd be like, okay, I'm going to eat that one tonight. And I'll, this one I'll save for Shabbos. And it was like a whole week of preparing up to Shabbos. I'm sure you all know, right? Not me, but other people who like even set their table like on Wednesday night for maybe not these days, right? But like, right? But all of us are when we do our grocery shopping, right? We have in mind like, okay, I need flour for my challah, or I need my, right? Like we do that. There's like we all have experienced that. You don't have to be super holy to be doing this. We're all doing it. We're all making plans. Like, where are we for next Shabbos? Where, our life. I mean, can you imagine what this year would have been like without Shabbos? I mean, how many times did you lose track of what day of the week it was until you had to recognize, oh, but Shabbos is coming, right? Like if we didn't have Shabbos, I mean, people who were home from work and home from school for, months at a time with no, without this kind of set, marker in place every 7 days, it was actually a very, very different experience for them. And as much as, maybe it was a hardship sometimes to like actually prepare, on some level, it kept us sort of, spinning on our axis, and
Gave
not
us our
flying off
limitation.
into.
Our boundary.
Exactly. That's exactly what it did. Okay. So, okay. So then he says, and we'll just finish it up. Okay. Hainu shegam hagufim mitkadshim b'Shabbat. Even our bodies get holified, right? Sanctified on Shabbos. V'gam yemei hachol mitkadshim. Okay, so there's an aspect of the kedusha that is drawn into the weekdays from the Shabbos before or from the Shabbos to come. And this ending is so chazak. It's so awesome. V'zeh al malei havei Yisrael mishamim bet Shabbatot miyad hayu nigalim. You've all heard this, right? Mm-hmm. That if only Am Yisrael would keep 2 Shabboses in a row, right? Keep 2 Shabboses, then immediately we would be redeemed. So he gives such a beautiful dimension to this. He says, Lefi hane'emar la'ayil, as we said above, Shabbat echad is HaShabbat. The first Shabbos is Shabbos. Vehabet, and the second, HaShabbat shebeyimei hachol. The second Shabbos is the Shabbos that is in the weekday. Shenimshach lahem kedushas Shabbos. So in that because we draw into it, or that the days that have Shabbos sort of drawn into them. And there's so very much this idea, and this is exactly what you said earlier, Neely, that in our correct mindset, if we live our 6 days doing, te'aseh melacha, then that enables us to keep Shabbos properly. And then when we keep Shabbos properly, or when we connect, let's say, I don't like the word properly, that
At best.
at best, right? Like we
connect every day.
have a deeper, we have the
Right.
deepest experience, right? Okay, right. And then there's some element of it that is actually part of our everyday lives, right? Every day, whether it's Shabbos or it's a weekday, there is some aspect of that kedusha of Shabbos that gets drawn into our lives, and it's a tool, right? Like everything that we learn, Chassidus is nothing except, a toolbox, right? Of how to do the same things that we've always been doing with a different mindset, with a different insight, with a different energy, right? It's just a little shift where we say it's not like, okay, fine, I have to get through these 6 days to get to Shabbos. There's an aspect of the 6 days actually make the Shabbos, and the Shabbos actually makes the 6 days, and they cannot exist without one another. And when we can connect to that idea, then our Shabbos gets elevated and our weekdays get elevated, all in a way, and they all become tools for us to connect to Hashem and to our deeper selves and to our into the bring more good into the world.
What's
So,
the saying? More than the Jews have kept the Shabbos, the
Yes.
Shabbos has kept the
yes, more than the Jews have kept Shabbos, the Shabbos has kept the Jews. They're absolutely, there's emes, it's just emes. I'll give us a bracha to end off. That, that this really, I give us a bracha that this should permeate our mindset and our hearts, and that we should have the koach to recall this to ourselves, several times a week, because it will give us all a new dimension and a new level and a new feeling of connection.
Amen.
So good Shabbos and good Vach. Bye, Chana. Bye, Tamar. Thank you.
It's so funny because during the lockdown, my youngest was constantly arguing with me about what day of the week.
I'll send out the source sheet.
She wouldn't believe me. Today's